morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we're going to be taking a look at Golurk. Golurk is one of those Pokemon, he's right on the fringes of the metagame. And no one seems to take it seriously, and no one seems to think it's any good. And then, every so often, I see a new winning deck, and I go, oh yeah, that's good. Now, the deck list here does come from the lovely Talonite X over on Twitter, and if we start off having a look at Golurk itself, there's really one thing we like about Golurk. This is not some multifaceted, multi-layered Pokemon. There is one thing we like about it: Fist of Antiquity. Love the name. 160 damage, as long as you have no supporter cards in your discard pile. If you do have any supporter cards in your discard pile, this attack does nothing. Now, this is quite simple. Don't play supporters. Simple as that. It used to be the case that everyone would go, well, we can play, just one or two Gladion because it doesn't actually go to your discard pile, it goes into your prizes, so we can deal with it. Well, bad news, Gladion's rotated, so now we are like full on zero supporters. No supporters whatsoever. Now, the good news is we have, in the meantime, gotten a few extra new little tricks that have made it way better. And one of the coolest things we've got is we play Appleton. Now, Appleton's one of those Pokemon that I think will see an awful lot of play, but I think the number of decks in which it sees play will be somewhat restricted. What you do is you flip a coin, and if heads, you switch your opponent active with one of their benched basic Pokemon. Very important to note that Appleton will only actually gust basic Pokemon. The good news is we're in a massively basic format at the moment, so that's not going to be a huge problem. One of the cool things about Golurk is that you get a one-hit KO on a Mewtwo and Mew, so if your opponent ever benches a Mewtwo and Mew, Appleton can just come in, bring them active, and get rid of them. But it also works if you are trying to two-hit KO something like a Zacian V, for instance. Your opponent goes to the bench, and as long as you can flip a heads, you can bring it into the active. Or really any basic on which they're relying. It's pretty nice. Now, that's the new Pokemon. There are some old friends in here as well. It's not that old, to be honest with you, but Oranguru. The Oranguru from Sword and Shield, it sees play in a huge amount of decks, it's a phenomenal card, and I don't see any reason why this would change anytime soon. You swap a card in your hand for the top card of your deck. You don't gain a card advantage, you have the same number of cards in your hand at the end as you did at the beginning, granted. And you do have to fix your top deck for next turn, but you've been playing a bunch of special energy here. You only ever need one at a time, so just pop it on top of your deck, and then grab another card. It's a basic Pokemon that gives you a little bit of extra consistency. That is a wonderful thing. Speaking of basic Pokemon that give you a little bit of extra consistency, Jirachi becomes big here. We're not playing supporter cards, but we are still very reliant on our trainer cards here. So look at the top 5 cards of your deck, find a trainer card, put it in your hand, Jirachi goes to sleep, but then a skateboard will allow you to retrieve it for free, even though it's asleep. That's a very good thing. And speaking of Pokemon that give you consistency, albeit not basic, how about Zebstrika? This is a one from Lost Thunder with the ability Sprint. Once during your turn before you attack, you may discard your hand and draw 4 cards. There are other options you could go for here. There's nothing to stop you popping in Chinchino instead. Still a basic Pokemon. Still gives you extra added consistency, although that time it's to discard 1 card from your hand to draw 2. Still got a retreat cost of 1. It's whatever you're into, basically, but this deck plays Zebstrika. My only concern would be that you're playing 8 special energy and no way to recover them, and you're not going to want to discard them with Zebstrika. But remember how I said you could get special energy out of your hand with Oranguru? That's why Zebstrika becomes palatable. I would not play Zebstrika without Oranguru, just to be clear. And then we got 1 copy of Ditto. Ditto Prism Star can evolve into any Stage 1. You're playing a Stage 1 deck, and Zebstrika's a stage 1, and Appleton's a stage 1, so fair to assume that Ditto is a pretty gosh darned good option here. A very good option. One thing to bear in mind, we're not that far away from the rotation by the time we're allowed to play again. So the only things you're losing are Ditto, which isn't the end of the world, and Zebstrika. But as I've said, Zebstrika could just be subbed out for something like Chinchino, and it'll be slightly less aggressive in its draw, but I don't think it would make a huge difference. Now, I've mentioned the energy a little bit already, and the one we're keeping around here is Triple Acceleration Energy. Triple Acceleration Energy is free colourless energy, but it falls off at the end of your turn. Okay. I mean, it's a one-shot deal, right? But it's 4 one-shot deals. That's good. The thing was, we used to just have 4 of those, and then we had to get really awkward trying to get energy for the rest of them. No more, ladies and gentlemen. Because all you need to do here is just play Twin Energy. And Twin Energy is 2 colourless energy on a non-GX, non-V Pokemon, which totally counts here. So now you've got 4 that fall off at the end of your turn, but 4 that don't fall off at the end of your turn, which should give you enough energy to get through the game. Now, in terms of trainer cards, we've got quite a lot of Pokemon Search here. 4 Quick Ball to get your basics, 3 Mysterious Treasure to get your Psychic or Dragon Pokemon. The only thing this will get here is your Golurk line, apologies for that. And 3 Evolution Incense to get your Evolved Pokemon. We play a lot of Pokemon Search because remember, we're not playing supporters. That makes you very, very reliant on your Zebstrika, your Jirachi, your Oranguru. You need to get your Pokemon rolling here because your Pokemon really are your engine for the deck. You can't play without. So make it work, ladies and gentlemen. Make it work. Okay, so outside of Pokemon Search, there are no supporters, remember, so we don't need to go through that. We do play 4 Custom Catcher. You play 2 at the same time, and you swap your opponent's active with one of their bench. Yes, I know we're playing Appleton, but we're only playing a 1-1 line. It only works on a coin flip. And even on a coin flip, it only gusts up a basic Pokemon, so you still need Custom Catcher here as well. Though worth pointing out that this lets you draw until you have 3 cards in your hand. And remember, this is a deck where you've got to get your Pokemon set up in the early game. If you don't, you will lose. So actually, playing Custom Catcher for the draw here is a good option. Free switch because you've got High Retreat Pokemon and you're playing Jirachi, so you need lots of switching. And speaking of High Retreat, we're also playing free buff padding. Because you see, Golurk's got a retreat cost of 4, which means buff padding gives it an extra 50 HP, which means you've got a 190 HP single prize Pokemon hitting for 160. You're going to one-hit anything that's weak, you're going to one-hit single prize Pokemon. Probably a good time to point out you will also one-hit KO Dedenne, who is everywhere still, so that's quite good. And outside of that, you're 2-hit KOing, so it would be nice if you could occasionally survive 1 hit to really push the prize rate in your favour, especially if you're 2-hit KOing. Now, I've already mentioned a skateboard, but there are a couple of one-of tools here. We've got Lucky Egg, if it's attached to a Pokemon that is KO'd, draw till you got 7 cards in your hand. Quite nice. Especially for your first Pokemon that's KO'd, remember how I keep talking about setting up. And Spell Tag, if it's attached to a Psychic Pokemon that is KO'd by damage from an opponent's attack, place 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way that you like. Well, that's going to work pretty nicely here, and this does also help you make up for the fact that against some Pokemon, you're not quite hitting enough. Although a lot of the time, 160 is kind of the sweet spot here. 1-hit KO with weakness, or single prize Pokemon, 2-hit KO otherwise. Would 170, 180, 190 make that much of a difference? For the odd GX or V it would, but for most Pokemon it really wouldn't. And given that we're playing so many different tools, playing Adventure Bag is a pretty good idea here to help you search them out. Now, In terms of stadiums, we're playing Chaotic Swell. When you play a stadium with that out, it gets discarded without anything happening. And the theory is here, there's no particular stadium you want to play, so you play this as a counter stadium. Make sure that fire decks can't use Giant Half to search out their energy. Or make sure that fighting decks can't use Martial Arts Dojo to do a little bit of extra damage, etc. Chaotic Swell is one of those. I don't know which one to play. I'll just play this as a counter one. That'll do, pig. That'll do. Now, we do also see a couple of other cards which become very important here. 4 Ordinary Rod gets back 2 Pokemon, 2 basic energy. Clearly, the basic energy becomes irrelevant here, because you're not playing any. But it basically just lets you grab 2 Pokemon and shuffle them back into your deck. Now, bearing in mind you can't play supporters, you've got to use items. And bearing in mind you really need 6 Golurk, because you want your opponent to have to go through 6 of them to win the game, this becomes phenomenal. Because every one of these gets you a 1-1 Golurk line back. Playing 4 of them is pretty awesome. And then 2 copies of Pokénav. Pokénav isn't a phenomenal card, but it's the best we've got. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, find a Pokemon or energy and put it into your hand. Well, it's the best we've got in terms of special energy search. Remember, no Guzma and Hala for fairly obvious reasons. It's a supporter. And I keep talking about the importance of getting out your Pokemon in the early game, so you know what? Pokénav actually becomes a really, really good option. I love Golurk. It is one of my favourite decks around at the moment. I cannot sit here and tell you for absolute certainty it is definitely going to be the very best deck around, but I can tell you with absolute certainty that it is a very good card, and when it works, I mean, this is another winning deck. And we've seen this multiple times at this stage. I still don't think it's a card that people are taking particularly seriously, but I think it's a card that they definitely should be. But I'd like to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darned awesome nonetheless. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.